Hello and welcome to the Football Parliament podcast, your one stop destination for your football debates, opinions, and discussions. Yesterday on the Parliament, we saw Vedant and Chirag rate each PL team's attack. Today, we shift our attention to the opposite side of the pitch as me, Hakim, and Anshuraj will rate each Premier League team's backline along with their goalkeeper, the entire defensive unit out of 10. So, without any further ado, let's get started with the ratings. Just a reminder, if you haven't pressed the subscribe button yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button and help us reach 400 subscribers. Let's get started with the first Big Six team. Anshuraj, which team should we cover first?
I think we should go from worst to best. So let's start with the worst defense in the league,
Let's just
and
go by
that's
the PL table. What the PL table says, which is which says Tottenham at first. Obviously, says nothing with only 3 games played, but okay, let's start with Tottenham. To list down the criteria that Chirag used in yesterday's video, it includes. This is a bit different. We'll also include the goalkeeper. We will include the backline, regardless of if the team plays a back four or a back three. I think in case of a back three, we will consider the wing backs as well, and we will also consider the quality of the players, how good they've been performing defensively, and also the depth in those positions for rotation or injury covers, etc. So, as I said, starting with Tottenham, how come your views on Tottenham's defensive unit?
This season, they've for the 3 games they've been great, and even last season under Jose Mourinho, he he took their defense to a next level because, of course, he's a defensive coach. Their defense is it's great as a unit, but individually their center backs lack quality, and even their fullbacks. Their keeper is great, uh, but otherwise their defense isn't that appealing.
I think it doesn't really matter how they do individually because if we are rating them as a unit, as a whole defensive unit, the goalkeeper Hugo Lloris obviously is the World Cup winning goalkeeper. As you said, they have done very well in restricting their opponents from scoring the first 3 games, which also included a game against Manchester City. Or some few standout names include Mark Doherty, Sergio Reguilon, the left back, a new signing Christian Romero, which one could argue is currently their best individual defender, or Haspet Tanganga, who was very impressive in their Premier League start. Overall, looking at all of these options and their quality, Anshuraj, what rating would you give Tottenham's defense, considering 10 is currently the best defense in the world right now?
uh, I would give it a 6.5. I think that's a pretty fair rating considering that I think Tottenham are an above average team in all regards. So even their defense also lies in that category. So a 6.5 I think is a fair rating considering they don't have world class defenders in their back line, and but as a unit they do function very well. So a 6.5 I think is pretty fair.
How come, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Anshuraj on this one. 6.5 is a fair rating for Tottenham.
Right, then if both of you do agree, we will stick to 6.5 for Tottenham Hotspur. With that, we cover the first Big Six team. Let's move on by what the table does show us. Next up is Manchester United, a very, very interesting one. They've got not one but two very good goalkeepers in the form of David De Gea and Dean Henderson, who could constantly compete for the number one spot. To list down their fullback options, they've got two great fullbacks as well in Luke Shaw, who was arguably the best left back in the world last season, and Van Bissaka, you could argue, is probably the weak link in their defense, but two amazing centre backs as well in Harry Maguire and Rafael Varane. So, Anshul, your views on Manchester United's defense?
I think the acquisition of Rafael Varane might see Manchester United take the next step in their defensive game. I think what Varane allows them to do is play a much higher line, and that automatically puts the team much closer to the opponent's goal. So Varane's acquisition really gives Man United the confidence to be more open in their game, and his acquisition is, I think, a pretty good one, considering the other aspects of the pitch also benefit from his signing. So yeah.
How come you're a Manchester United fan? If you're being completely honest with yourself, as I said, if 10 is the best defense in world football right now, considering the four starting options, which are quite obvious, the four ones I listed, also the backup options, how do you see your defensive unit rank among the best in Europe right now?
Um, I think Manchester United's their whole defense, including their squad depth, uh, I think we are a solid eight ranking in world football.
I'll
Thinks
have to agree
eight.
with that.
Okay.
8 is pretty fair because they have added, decent squad depth as well to that defense. And 8,
Yes, and as you said, Wan-Bissaka is the weak link, but I think Wan-Bissaka is gets caught out because last season why he was so poor is because he was covering Lindelof's bad positioning. So he had
Yeah.
to fill in for Lindelof, which left the back post free and led to leaking a lot of goals. But with the acquisition of Varane and his great positioning, I don't think that will Wan-Bissaka is going to be a problem this season.
Makes a lot of sense, but to be honest, if I was to give Manchester United a rating, I think they have got undoubtedly one of the best three left backs in world football. Two of the best, probably top 10 centre backs in world football, you could say, and a right back who's just very great defensively. Also, two keepers who are great in their positions as well. And if you look at the squad depth, Alex Telles is one player who is very exciting. Uh, and he is quite good for a backup left back, in my opinion. Even Victor Lindelof, Eric Bailly, Diego Dalot, I think these are quite solid backup players as well. So I personally would give Manchester United an 8.5, but if we do arrive on the average rating, it does come down to 8. So yeah, I think we will stick to 8 for Manchester United. Moving on, Chelsea, a big question. I just mentioned that 10 being the best defense in Europe right now. Do you all think that Chelsea is the best defense in Europe right now? Starting with Anshuraj. I won't give my views on this because initially because I will be called biased. So
I think Chelsea are in contention for being the best defense in the world because I think they had the most amount of clean sheets last season. Even though they had a pretty poor start to the last season, they still managed to have the most clean sheets in Europe, which just speaks volumes about the defense. I think that the back three which Tuchel plays has really elevated the side in general. And yeah, they also have star power in their defense. They've got Thiago Silva, one of the best defenders in the world. They've got Reece James, who's a pretty solid right back, and they've got good depth in the left back position with Marcus Alonso and Ben Chilwell. So yeah, I think Chelsea may be the best defense in the world. But yeah,
and do you think there's a particular weak link in this defense?
I think there's no weak links at all. That's why they're one of the best defenses in the world. So uh, the only place where you could say there's slightly bit of a weak link is because they don't really have a nailed on left back like as a starter because there's quite a bit of competition there. But otherwise, I don't think there's a issue with Chelsea's backline at all.
Fair point, but I think competition is always something that does benefit the squad. Make sure that the players are on their toes. How would you rate this Chelsea defense? Again, saying that 10 being the best defense in Europe right now.
I do think Chelsea is the best defense in Europe right now. But I'm not gonna give them a complete 10 because I feel they're the best defense in the world as a unit. But if you look at them as individual players, which doesn't actually matter because we're rating them as a unit, but I'm just saying that as individual players like Tony Rudiger, you see, he based on last season, of course, he's world class. He won the Champions League, and but and Marcus Alonso and Reece James, they're not particularly players you'd call the best in the world or world class, but they're good enough to win them a Champions League, of course. So I think a rating of 9.5 would be fair.
I think that's quite a fair point by Hakam, and it does also bring me to the point that Chelsea right now do have quite a world-class defense, you could say, but this you could say is restricting the time a bit because Tuchel has been in charge only since January. Before that, under Lampard, we were shambles. Under Sarri, we weren't that great either. I still remember losses like the 6-0 against Manchester City. So does this defense need to prove themselves for more a season and a half? I think yes, before we could just call them a 10 on 10 defense. Hakim said 9.5. I completely agree with 9.5. Anshuraj, your ratings for Chelsea.
I'll have to go with a 9.5 as well. I think the point which you raised at the end is the reason why they're not a 10 on 10 yet. But I can see them getting that 10 if they keep on their consistent performances, which I think they will because they're a pretty good side now.
Yeah. Right, then let's move on to the fifth place team in the PL table right now, Liverpool, whose defense starting with the number one, Alisson Becker, right back Trent Alexander-Arnold, centre backs. They've actually got quite a good competition in there in the centre backs. I think Virgil van Dijk is a nailed-on starter over there. They've got Joel Matip, they've got Joe Gomez and Ibrahim Konate at centre back, and Andy Robertson at left back as well. So this is another very good looking defense. Anshaj, your takes on the Liverpool defense?
I think on paper, if you look at it, Liverpool probably have the best defense, like in terms of individuals, because I think they've got a world-class player in almost every department of defense. They've got a world-class right back, world-class left back, world-class centre back in Van Dijk, and a world-class goalkeeper. So if you look at it in that way, you probably see that Liverpool have the best defense in the Premier League. But as we saw last season, one injury to that defense really sort of crippled the entire team. And Van Dijk is the glue which sort of makes Liverpool the dominant force we know them to be. So that's a concern. But I think the acquisition of Ibrahim Konate might prove that to be futile next season into the upcoming season. So yeah, I think their squad depth in defense is also increased. So I think Liverpool have improved even more than what they had previously.
And how come your views on Liverpool?
I think, as Anshuraj said, they have a world-class player in every single position, left back, centre back, and right back. But I don't think their squad depth is that great. They have a good left back, good backup left back, as we saw at the start of the Premier League when Kostas Tsimikas, or however you pronounce his name, he bagged an assist or two, I don't remember, but he played well and filling in for Robertson. And despite popular belief, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't that bad defensively, but they lack squad depth in the centre back role, because I see, of course, they signed Konate and they have Matip and Joe Gomez, but all three of these players are known to be injury prone. Matip and Joe Gomez, of course, we know they keep getting injured, and Ibrahim Konate's his injury history isn't that great at RB Leipzig either. So I don't know. Let's see how the season goes. And at right back, they basically have no squad depth.
Yeah. Fair points made by both of you. Let's have with the rating. I'll go first. I think the Liverpool team, considering the keeper, considering the starting four defenders and their deputies as well, I think Liverpool are a solid. I'll go with a 9 on 10. Yeah, I'll go with a 9 on 10. Anshuraj.
I'd have to go for an 8.5 because coming off of last season, I think despite they missed their main man in the defense, but still you have to consider into some things. And I think considering last season, 8.5 is fair in my opinion.
I will go with an 8. I don't think they're a better defense than Manchester United, so I can't rank them higher. Keeping my bias aside, of course. And I'll give them an 8. So
yeah,
I think we can settle on an 8.5.
We can settle on an 8.5 on average. Moving on next is the second Manchester club, the current defending Premier League champions in Manchester City. Reading out their defensive options, goalkeeper first choice Edison. Right backs, they've got a good mix of Kyle Walker and Joao Cancelo. The centre back partnership is more or less Ruben Diaz, John Stones, but very you know, very respectable deputies as well in Armeric Laporte, Nathan Ake, and left back, which many do agree is the weak link in this defense. Joao Cancelo can play over there. Alexander Zinchenko has gradually risen a bit, but is he still at the world class level set by the other players at Manchester City? We still don't know. Benjamin
What
Mendy.
about Manchester City's? Yeah. About Mendy, I think
Yeah, yeah.
it's better not to talk about Mendy. The accusations are honestly.
Pulled a Benzema on us.
Oof, oof. Anyway,
Sorry for
then
that.
looking at the defense and Anshuraj, you're a partial Manchester City fan, I believe. So your take on your club's defense.
Well, last season I think it's because of the defense that Manchester City romped to the Premier League title. There's no question about that. Uh, Pep has been known to play this roulette with his entire team, in fact. But the defense last season wasn't really a target with this roulette. Pep was pretty consistent with his selection. He chose Diaz and Stones consistently week in week out, and they've got incredible depth, as you said. They've got a world class centre back just lying on the bench in Aymeric Laporte, which is unheard of. Most teams in the world, you would die to have a world class centre back in the 11, and Manchester City just have one on the bench. So that speaks volumes about how good the defense is. Then regarding right back, I think they're pretty sorted. They've got an offensive option in Joao Cancelo, a defensive option in Kyle Walker. Both of them can play different roles in different matches when called upon. Left back, again, as you said, it's the weak link in that defense. They've not had a proper left back since when Pep has come to Manchester. So that's one position where they've always lacked. And at goalkeeper, I think Edison and Zach Steffen are pretty good goalkeepers. Edison being, in fact, in my opinion at least, deserve to be called world class. So yeah, I think Manchester City have pretty decent defense contention for being one of the best in the world, in fact, in my opinion.
So we gave Chelsea a 9.5, or 10 being the best defense in boy football right now. Do you think City's defense is as good as Chelsea, a slight bit better, or a slight bit worse? I think it's going to be at that range for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Ruben Diaz is the most overrated player probably in the history of the Premier League. But keeping that aside, they're contenders for for the best defense in the Premier League and probably in all of Europe right now, with Chelsea in contention with Chelsea, of course. So I think we're gonna have to give them a strong rating.
And that rating is?
I'll give them a 9, a solid 9.
I'll agree on 9 as well. Anshuradhi?
Same. Yeah, a 9 as well.
9 as well. It's 3 nines. So we do settle on 9 out of 10 for Manchester City. Potentially the second best defense in the world if you say Chelsea is the first one. I don't really see many other clubs outside the Premier League. Probably Atletico Madrid or someone, but yeah, let's move on to Arsenal. Let's move on to Arsenal. Actually, before all the banter begins,
Do we need to do this?
I think we do. Maybe we'll just have a very short mention of Leicester as well if people do want that, because Chirag and Vedant did that. Yeah. So actually, before all the banter begins, I will like to say that Arsenal's best defense isn't as bad as people think it is. Bernd Leno, he's not world class, but he's not terrible as well. He's, I think, quite an above average shot stopper. We saw that against Chelsea as well. Pulled off a great save against Lukaku. Now, if you do see the defense, I think 2 or 3 of the best players in their squad are in their backline. I think Kieran Tierney, without a doubt, is the best player at Arsenal right now. He is quite a solid left back who could easily play for a better club. We've got Gabriel and Ben White, which is actually a very young yet commendable centre back pairing. Arsenal have conceded lots of goals this season, but not once have they had White and Gabriel start together due to injury issues. And right back, I'm not so sure. I think Hector Bellerin, but didn't they sign very recently on deadline their right back someone from
They
Yeah,
no
they signed someone from Serie A.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I don't know a lot about him, but I've heard that he is.
Yeah, sorry, guys, I don't follow relegation football of the Premier League that much.
But the deputy options might be terrible, and Pablo Mari, Holding, Chambers. These are as poor big six defenders as it can get. But starting options wise, they aren't as terrible as people think, in my opinion. So your takes on Arsenal's defense, Anshaj Nahakum, starting with Anshaj.
Well, I mean, Arsenal have not been able to put out their best defensive lineup yet, so I don't think it's a fair estimation. Most people at this point would probably give Arsenal at 0 for their defense, but I don't think that's a very fair estimation considering they've not played their first choice defense yet. Arteta has not had the luxury to pick that. But even if you think about it, this defense is by far the worst you could say among the big six. Like there's a huge gap between Arsenal and the next best big six team, which in my opinion is Spurs. But there's a huge gap between that, and Arsenal have just gone on. They've like since the last 10 years, the issue has always been defense. Like how has the club gone 10 years without fixing this defensive problem? I'll never know. But yeah, talking about the present, Arsenal do have 2-3 good individuals in the defense, but as a collective, I'm not so sure. We'll have to wait and see. But currently, I think we all know the car crash state of Arsenal's defense.
And how come we gave Tottenham a 6.5? So, and I think we all can pretty much agree that Arsenal are still quite a level behind Tottenham as well. So, your rating on Arsenal's backline and the keeper?
I firstly, I'd like to say free Ainsley Maitland-Niles. They've captured my boy. He's a better right back than any of their current right backs, and he wants to play right back. He's a very flexible player. He can play any position asked of him. But he wants to play right back. But I don't think he wants to play for Arsenal. He wants to play for
he's a goat.
good
I've never seen a player handling a transfer request via his Instagram story.
On their Instagram story.
Even tagging the club.
Tremendous. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so I think Arsenal deserves a rating of 5, which is below average. But of course, we haven't.
5 is pretty much average. It's bang on average.
Yeah,
I think Arsenal's defense is below average if you think about it at the moment. But okay, I'll give Arsenal a 4.5.
But we haven't seen their starting two centre backs. So I don't. So that's why I think 5 is a fair rating.
Okay, then I'll give Arsenal a 5 as well.
What about you, Palash?
Yeah, I think we can agree on 5. I think we can just very quickly mention Leicester City as well. Not a lot of discussion, only to rate their defense because they are what people call the best of the rest, and at the moment clearly better than Arsenal. Kasper Schmeichel, James Justin, Wesley Fofana, both of them are injured but great players. Jangla Soyuncu, Ryan Bertrand, the new signing, Johnny Evans, Ricardo Pereira, Yannick Vestergaard, Timothy Castagne, Luke Thomas. So actually it looks like quite a good set of players to me. They haven't had the best start to the season. I think defensively they did concede 4 goals in one game against West Ham. Very quickly, I think this defense is better than Arsenal's. I think, is it better than Spurs? Well, the names.
In my opinion, no.
No,
I
not
don't
really.
think so.
I don't think.
Yeah. I think the names are, if you see the likes of
the individual qualities, of course, better than Spurs.
Ricardo Pereira. These players have been treated quite well, even on socials or by football fans. But then, and on the contrary, Spurs players like Tanganga and the other ones, Davos and Sanchez, they are have received a lot of dust. So probably you could say on paper they are better than Spurs, but as a unit, I think I'll give them a 6 on 10.
I think that's a fair rating. I'll go with 6 as well. How come?
I'll go with the 5.5, but the average rating, of course, you have to go with a 6.
Yeah, let's just go with the 6. So yes, if we do summarize our ratings from best to worst, the best comes with Chelsea, who receive a 9.5 out of 10. Second place is Manchester City, who receive a 9 out of 10. I think at third we've got Manchester United or Liverpool. Which one? I think it's
It was Liverpool. It was Liverpool. Liverpool with an 8.5.
yeah, Liverpool with an 8.5, and then United had an 8. Yeah, United
Yeah.
had an 8, and
Yeah.
then we had Spurs at 6.5, and then
6.5.
Arsenal at 5. Actually demonstrates the gap in defense, also shows probably the current gap in the overall teams, because we know how important our defense is to the team. So if you see the difference between Manchester United and Spurs, that's actually quite a lot. It's 1.5 point difference. And then again from Spurs to Arsenal is another 1.5 point difference. So as the manager has rightly said, attack wins your games, defense wins your titles. The defense of the teams is currently definitely showing their overall standings as well. But do let us know what changes would you make to these ratings. Which team has the best rating in the Premier League according to you? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. We will make sure to reply to all of them. And it was quite a fun video with Hakum and Anshuraj. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and for more top quality football content, keep listening to the Football Parliament podcast. Thank you.